then it is time for the public comments. We have, yeah, I do, but, okay, so there will be an opportunity for everybody to speak. We've got blue cards here. Please fill one out if you would like to speak. Turn it into Rebecca and she will bring it up to us. And each speaker has 3 minutes, and they're on the phone. You will also have an opportunity to speak. And I have 2 cards here. Kelly Watts.
Even with the best research, we can't have a completely definitive resin. And maybe we should say that now and not 3 years from now. I couldn't agree more. This will probably be the last panel of this high caliber that will be convened in the United States for many years to come regarding synthetic turf risks. I've been reporting on turf studies like this one for news outlets for over a decade. Across our country, I've met families and public health advocates who are deeply frustrated. They borrow the words of the students today in voicing their anger about short-sighted politics and feel that it is appropriate and fair, with all due respect, to call out nonsense for the following reasons. They call nonsense on the plastic, synthetic turf, and rubber manufacturing lobbyists and salesmen who repeatedly claim that introducing pulverized tires into children's play areas has been proven to be safe, and it has not. They call it on the third, virtually identical Cal EPA turf study, which once again uses the same inconclusive methodology, which primarily involves testing minuscule teaspoon-sized samples of enormous acres of chemical-rich material that is heterogeneous and highly variable. They call it on the claim that the study is practicing transparency when it refuses to post for review the transcripts of all of these meetings and not just some at the very end. And also for refusing to allow the media and the public to observe any sampling and testing, even when human test subjects and locations willingly volunteered to participate in the study public record. They call it on the study's claims of inclusiveness. Nancy Alderman conducted the Yale University turf study and volunteered to serve on this panel. Athletes and scientific experts with years of experience on this topic were also excluded. They call it on the study timeline that could have taken a couple of years at most, now been dragged out for 4 years, allowing the industry more time to expand their business footprint. They call it on anybody who holds in higher regard the interest of the synthetic turf industry, the rubber manufacturing industries, or the recycling industries over the health and welfare of the tens of the thousands of families that are exposed to the chemicals on these fields daily. They call it on any argument which tries to justify not requiring basic warning signs. In California, where one chemical in coffee requires warning signs to be posted, plastic and crumb turf with dozens of chemicals and toxins being released into the environment and into human bodies is curiously being given a free pass. I thank all of the panel members for the important responsibility you've taken upon yourselves, as you are now considered to be the de facto experts for the people, and count on you to stand up for our most vulnerable and for our children. Thank you.
Okay, our next comment comes from Amy Bracken.
Hi, I just have a real quick one. I want to thank everyone today for the panel. I think you guys have done a fantastic job. The meeting has been very informative for those of us who aren't scientists, easier to understand perhaps than some of the prior ones when we were talking about methodologies and things that tend to go over our heads, so I really appreciate that. We're grateful for the work that's been done both by the researchers and the panelists. I really just want to note that there's been so much good verbal feedback today, commentary on the slides and presentations, that we would like to ask and understand that these slides, as they're made available to the public, would simply be caveated, if you will, as what they are. That these slides today we're here to address public concern, and that we're clear about releasing the slides to make sure that they're taken into context and they're really not left to interpretation as, you know, a finding of any kind of risk. Some of the words that were used, some of the big, small, large, small particles, high, low, things like that can, you know, we've seen this topic is very contentious, and sometimes things get taken out of context or a specific slide gets taken and blown out of proportion. So we simply ask that when they're released to the public, that there is some kind of statement that goes along with that to help explain what today's slides are all about. We had a brief discussion on this, but in the playground component, it was mentioned that the surfaces being looked at are poured-in-place surfaces. Poured-in-place surfaces typically from the industry are a tire rubber on the lower part of the surface and an EPDM top layer, oftentimes because they want those to look really nice and they've got bright colors on them and that kind of thing. So I simply want to make that statement that we make sure, I mean, it's kind of an obvious one, that we're actually testing tire rubber on these and perhaps not some other surface, you know, topical areas. And then finally, you know, I just need to ask, I think we've mentioned this before, but we're focused very much crumb rubber, recycled tire rubber in this presentation. Hopefully when this risk assessment is done, there is some reference point, some baseline to these studies to help individuals, parents of young children understand, you know, where this falls in the entire picture of playing surface as a whole, whether it be natural grass or comparative surfaces. Thank you.
Okay, our next commenter is Denise Kennedy. And if any of you want to state the organization you're from, feel free to, but you don't have to.
My name is Denise Kennedy, DK Enterprises. I've been in the tire recycling industry 30 years. And I wanted to first focus on playgrounds. Pretty much Amy just said a lot of what I was going to say, but I do think we need some controlled measurement on the playgrounds. We have loose fill nuggets that are in playgrounds, and that's been discussed at all, and that's loose fill. So pretty similar to taking infill, but about a 3/8 inch piece of rubber. So if you're going to look at it, I would do a comparative controlled study. I would also look at engineered wood fiber if you're going to do this, and sand, because it's like a cat box. So it's not one that's bad. There's areas of concern of probably any one of them. So I just need to say that. The other thing just to explain to people is that when you take this rubber that they're talking about running a piece of equipment over or taking a sample from it, the top surface is 1/2 inch, about 1 inch to 3 inches thick. It's usually EPDM rubber, which is a synthetic rubber. It's not tire rubber. So as you start taking off the top, it's going to have nothing to do with tire rubber. Then you go down about 3 inches, and then you're going to have buffings. Buffings come from truck tires. They're not crumb rubber, just so you know. So crumb rubber is from a tire, not from the buffings of a truck tire. So that's a difference of what are we going to be looking at. So I think that's important. I'm not aware of maybe just one company that just does solid rubber for a playground. And we also have to meet specifications for the head injury level. The reason the thickness of that material on the playgrounds is based on the fall height of the equipment and the potential of a head injury, which is called the Hick value of about 1,000. So that's about 18% possibility of a head injury. So I just need to say that. That's really important as you look at this. And then my other thing would be, as you've done a great job today, and I love your questions as a panel. They have been great. So for the other ones that are working on it, the one that because I just left ASTM meetings this week on turf and on playgrounds, I've kind of been listening to different people have some concerns. One of them that I kind of hear is, we have testing facilities that are really, really into how many different locations on a field that they do tests. You may have already talked to them, but if you would like a few of those top companies that do most of it for the big players, I'm happy to give it to you if you want to talk to them as well. And then my last point that I kept hearing, and I didn't hear it because I missed the hour, is there's a lot of concern about what you guys are testing at heat level. Somebody said it was 300 C, and that's like 700 degrees, I think they said. I just heard this discussion quite a bit. Big concern, and why are we doing that when no field ever gets that hot? And by the way, back to playgrounds. It's the equipment that gets really hot. So you don't want to play on the equipment. The rubber might be warm and hot, but the playground equipment is terrible. So I just want to say that. Okay? I'm done.
Thank you. Okay, Nick Lapis.
Hi, good afternoon. Nick Lapis with the Environmental Group Against Waste. Sorry about that. Following up on the last two comments, actually, very similar comment to what I was going to make. The biggest flaw that I see in the methodology right now is the lack of a control. You can't really make any claims about the impacts of the chemical in a synthetic turf field if you don't test the soil adjacent to the field and if you don't use a grass field as a comparison. Similarly with the playgrounds and looking at traditional playgrounds that don't have the pour-in-place rubber. I mean, really, you're setting yourself up for a situation where no matter what the results are, both sides are going to claim that it proves their point. Because one side's going to say, yes, there are XYZ chemicals, and the other side will say, but they didn't compare it to soil, and so therefore it's meaningless. That seems like a glaring omission. It's one we've taken up since the first scoping meeting you've had on this issue. I've brought it up personally about 3 or 4 times now. I'm surprised that it still hasn't been addressed. I know it's hard methodologically to compare soil with the turf, but it's worth figuring it out. Thank you.
Okay, our next commenter is Steve Kraus.
Hi, I'm Steve Krause with CRM Company. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. We would like to recognize everybody's efforts in the study, your approaches, your hard work and dedication, and we really look forward to the conclusions and outcomes, what we can take away from the study. Very important that we really look after the people, all people, whether it's children or adults that are playing and utilizing these fields. I'm a little concerned, as some of the other previous comments are, on the lack of control, that we don't compare these fields to native fields or native grass with soil contamination, and that we're looking at the other alternatives within synthetic turf fields that are being utilized, such as EPDM, the sand, husk, or cork. So there's other materials that are being utilized as infill. So it seems like if we're really in what's the safest mechanism, we should look at all of these options and evaluate them all for what they are. And then how do we differentiate the VOCs and the contaminants that are associated with, that are native to the crumb rubber, as opposed to sand infill that's mixed in with the crumb, or the carpet, the blade, the other aspects of the synthetic turf solution. So being able to truly isolate those and say with a high degree of certainty that those are native to the crumb rubber or whatever part of the infill is very important, and that we communicate that in our findings. Thank you.
Okay, our next commenter is Robina Sewell.
Hi, good afternoon. It's Robina Sewell. I'm the Executive Director of California Safe Schools. I want to thank OEHHA and the Science Advisory Panel and everyone that worked so diligently and enthusiastically on this study. Thank you so much. And I also just want to add that I really appreciate comments made by the panelists to help the public better understand a lot of this data. And I appreciate your efforts on that as well. We all know that tires are considered to be too toxic to be placed in landfills, yet when they're shredded, they're allowed to be used on playgrounds and athletic fields and pathways. And the state also continues to fields. And this continues to be troubling given the known chemicals that have been identified in tires and the extreme vulnerability of children and adults and athletes who play on these tire crumb fields, as well as illnesses that have been recorded of more than 200 plus soccer players who have on fields that contain tire crumb. I have just a few other comments. That is, given the toxicity of mercury, even at low levels, we would hope that you would continue to include mercury when you're sampling. And we'd also like you to please also consider the synergy impacts of chemicals that include but may not be limited to zinc, chromium, arsenic, carbon black, benzene, lead, cadmium, mercury, and hydrocarbons. And we did, you were talking about the mats, the children's mats, and a lot of them do disintegrate really easily, either from a lot of use. So I do hope that you can continue to do some testing where these materials tend to wear away. And then I have just one last question, and that is, since testing was performed on samples of tire crumb that was taken directly at the source where tires are shredded, were Prop 60 chemicals found at this when they did the testing? And if so, have the facilities where these samples were taken, and if they contained Prop 65 chemicals, did they follow protocols and notifications that are required? Thank you so very much.
Okay, Kathleen McGowan.
I'm Kathleen McGowan. I'm president of Healthy Soccer San Francisco. It's a soccer coach and soccer parent organization. First, I'd like to thank you for your service to California's children. I'm providing an update. Whoops, I'm already done. I'm providing an update on recent changes in the use and construction of Bay Area soccer fields. These were spurred by concerns and players on the health risks of tire crumb infill, but particularly for preschoolers. We asked that the OEHHA study the everyday use of crumb fields by many thousands of toddlers and preschoolers all over California, with particular consideration to their high vulnerability to exposure, which has been mentioned today. By example, San Francisco is a crowded city with limited park space. So preschoolers regularly play on these tire crumb fields. These often very young children typically play with and lie and roll in the tire crumb, at least in my experience. At my local park alone, 5 different Chinese preschools brought their children to these fields every day for years. So preschoolers are not just observers, but they're primary users of these fields. When a local reporter's 2-year-old came home with tire crumb in his hair, and as she voiced her concerns in her San Francisco Examiner column, Healthy Soccer San Francisco had the article translated into Chinese and provided to the preschools. These children now play in the toddler playgrounds, which you are now going to be looking at, no longer brought to these fields. Note today's report of toddlers both indirectly and intentionally ingesting tire crumb. Please consider expanding the playground study to include exposure for this vulnerable group to the actual tire crumb fields. Thank you very much.
Do we have anybody on the phone? No. Okay, so we have no one on the phone. We do have comments sent in website that Jocelyn will read to us.
Okay, we have, the first comment we have is from Dr. Mary Zakrasek. Her comment is, the question I'd like to ask is about toxins. Typically, each toxin is studied for what its individual toxicity might be, but studies have synergistic relationships such that one toxin can make others more toxic. Example, in this study, the synergistic relationship between lead, 0.01 milligrams per liter, mercury, 0.001 milligrams per liter, cadmium, 0.005 milligrams per liter, and arsenic, 0.1 milligrams per liter, were looked into. Individually, the dose is considered very low and safe for the mice, although when they are combined, it induced toxicity to the brain, liver, and kidney of mice. Is this being taken into consideration? The next comment we have is from Mr. Nicholas Baker. The question is, Given what OEHHA does know about the turf, that it contains lead, black carbon, and other toxic chemicals, and that there are dangers of the materials overheating on hot days, when will you begin to post signs advising those who come in contact by playing on these fields or paths of the dangers? Also, when do you plan to do the active monitoring? The next comment is from Dr. Claudio Sorrentino, and his comment is, having been a soccer referee myself, after officiating on synthetic turf fields, I was always amazed by the amount of rubber particles that came out from my shoes. Interesting enough, although the feet were protected by socks and when I took shoes and socks, interesting enough, although the feet were protected by shoes and socks, when I took shoes and socks off, I believe, when time to go home, the feet were at least in part covered by the black, very fine particles. Keep in mind that the shoes are in contact that in the summer can get very hot. In addition, feet get sweaty inside the shoes and the moisture does not evaporate as much from other areas of the body. And the last comment we have is from Dr. Robert Blink. And the comment is, in the meeting materials for this meeting, in section 3.2, figures 1 and 2 on pages 35 and 36, dm over d log dp is shown as color contour plots with a spectrum key at lower right, but no values for the scalar shown. What are the numerical values for the color contour plots? All we have from internet comments.
We received a mix of questions and comments, including some from the web, and to the extent that we can, we'll respond to those questions. I think some of the questions would take a good deal of discussion. The panel has various issues raised, so I'm wondering if in the final remarks, if the panel want to reflect on some of what they've heard from the public, and if you have any further advice to give us, we'd love to hear it. Thank you.